Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Coaching. My name is Kevinbritz, international leadership coach, trainer and facilitator and host of the Lunchtime series, where we add value to people's lives happening every day at 12 on ebrizradio.com. So if you want to hear that, guys, make sure you tune in every day at 12. Today we are chatting to a really interesting lady from all the way from Malta, the Malta Island. She's a social entrepreneur and founder to the Global Mindset Development. Please welcome Viviana Premazzi. Am I saying it correctly? Premazzi, eh?
Perfect, yes.
Viviana, thank you so much for joining us. Happy 2021, and please tell us who you are and what it is you do.
Same to you and to all, and thank you for having me. So yes, my name is Viviana Premazzi. I live in Malta, the island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. I'm actually Italian. And what I do with Global Mindset Development is to help companies and individuals to work across cultures. So we do intercultural management, intercultural communication, and all the service that has to do with people coming from different cultures, working together, or people working in different countries and doing business across cultures.
Fantastic. So to kick off today's conversation, Viviana, I think what is really interesting and which is really pushed the button on, especially for 2021, having to start working remotely. People are really needing to consider that in their actual corporate culture, but also how this has really crossed boundaries and countries. We're really in connection with the world at the moment, and I'm sure that, exactly what we're going to be talking today is exactly what you work with, having to consider cultures and diversity and why that's so important. So don't you want to sort of preface what we are going to talk about and the importance of that?
Yes, exactly. I think you made a really good point. Let's say the focus of our work is people. And what 2020 asked us was to put even more people at the center of the business, but also the different needs of the people that we have in the same office, in the same company, working in the same spaces. So it's also taking care of the work-life balance and also have people and different way we can work nowadays, so even working remotely, but still be connected in the company and with the people, with the employees of the company. And this is for leaders and for managers. It's something really, it's something new also, and they have to work and be aware of the challenges and the opportunities of this.
Absolutely. So what is, according to you, so what is cultural consciousness? I think, one of our conversations that I've recently had speaks to COVID. As much as COVID has brought the tyranny and the sadness and all the baggage that it has, one of the things that it has raised consciousness is, how do we do what we do and why we do what we do? Don't you want to speak to us about the actual cultural consciousness that we need to really start putting in place, and how that really lends itself to that diversity and inclusivity, and why this is a strategic leadership stance to engage with in 2021?
Yeah, I think that is extremely important. It's something also that 2020 made evident to all of us. There are still the inequalities that exist in the same country, in the same companies, across cultures and across countries. And COVID made it happen, made it evident, but also other like Black Lives Matters and everything that happened around the world following that. When I work with companies, I always try to help them to define the different cultures that are already in the workplace. So it's not only different nationalities, it's not only different religion, it's not only different generation and gender. So let's see who is in the room and also the different needs of all these people together and all the individuals. And again, I think this is also something we have learned from 2020, and it's something that more and more HR managers and leaders are bringing in the new year. So let's start from the needs of our employees, because the more they feel that we are listening to them and we are acting based on their needs, they feel included, their performance is better, and so the company also will benefit.
So, I mean, I just want to, it just sort of occurred to me now, why is this such a passion of yours? I mean, a bit of your history also speaks to this. And I mean, you've worked across the world and you work with many nationalities. Why is this a topic that sort of stood out for you and you thought, yeah, this is definitely something to get involved in with?
I think one of the reasons could be I'm coming from a really small town in Italy, so it was really a close community. But I've been like exposed and curious about diversity since I was a kid, and I don't want people to fear the diversity, but really to enjoy the diversity. And I'm also coming from Italy, Europe. I work in different countries, and I know that we all know that the diversity can bring change, and we are all afraid of change because we also like what we are and what we do, but change can be for the good or for the better. And what I want to help my clients and all the people around me is to really understand and enjoy the diversity, because if we are able to manage the fears and look at the region of the diversity and managing in a proper way, I think we all can be enriched by it.
Yeah. So one of the things that you mentioned in the information that we shared is the importance of understanding for managers to recognize their leadership style. You know, from the research that I've done and from the work environment that I've been in, middle management specifically is quite an underrated and undervalued area. But and you mentioned, you know, why managers really need to understand their style of leadership as well. How is that influencing, and why does that influence the development of that intercultural connection between cultures and really bringing that to the forefront?
I think another, let's say, difficult thing to recognize is that we all have conscious and unconscious biases, and this is again a human and natural process. So it's natural to put people in boxes to simplify the complexity. So for all the managers to understand the biases where you come from, and they can be generational, they can be gender, they can be nationalities, the more then you can, if you understand your bias and you're aware of your bias or also your way of thinking, you can realize that maybe you're treating someone in a different way or in a bad way based on your prejudice and your stereotypes. So the more you are aware, the more you can maybe adjust your different like leadership style or just listening to them, and so build an inclusive workforce. Same is, if I can just add another small thing, is I live in Europe, and we think that there is, let's say, only one leadership style or two, but actually there are different leadership styles, and across culture, even inside European Union or Europe, we can see that the Southern European has a different leadership style than the Northern European. In intercultural management, we divide the society into more hierarchical society and more egalitarian society. And so also in the leadership style, then you're part of you're coming from your culture and the way you have been educated. So maybe you are too egalitarian for your workforce, your employees, or you are too hierarchical. And so the more you are aware of your leadership style, the more you can explain it to them and adjust if needed.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And, you know, because I think my first go-to point when you mention this is, especially when there's such diversity and different regions, different cultures, you really have to be on the upside of really and the forefront really of what that looks like, right? So what do we do? I mean, what is the process that we follow? Are there steps that we really can start taking on how to build an inclusive environment and really starting to recognize how to do this more effectively? Is there a sort of step process? How do you go about doing it?
So sometimes when also clients approach me, they want, let's say, an easy, fast solution. So, and sometimes it copy paste from somewhere else or other companies or other countries, and also it's something that it need to have an impact so we can show to the others that we're actually doing something on diversity and inclusion. Actually, this is not good. So always my suggestion is start from the needs of your employee. So start with a discovery phase. Yeah, this can take time. It can take also an effort of time and resources, but it is the best way because you don't just like copy paste from someone else or you change your communication campaign, but you start from what you have, so their needs. It is about having difficult conversations. So even if you think you are the best company in the world to work with, maybe there is something you can still improve, and having this conversation and then writing an action plan. And so you can identify priorities and something that can follow. And it is about the company, so the strategy of the company, the employees, but also maybe you want to involve the suppliers and also the future generations. So also link this to corporate social responsibility, the community around the company. So this is the way I see the plan, or a good plan.
Yeah, so that's basically your phased approach, right? To have that needs assessment, to really understand, and to really find the strategy to implement, right?
Exactly.
So, being in the position you're in, and I know it's not part of my list of questions here, but I'm just thinking, in the last 12 months, being what it has been, what have you noticed as some of the key points that is really starting to stand out? And what are those things that are really starting to show up in corporate environments? One of the things that I've recognized that as a skill, leadership as a skill really needs to be part and parcel of the forward motion of where corporates are running their businesses and really taking that initiative to upskill themselves, really understand what leadership looks like, behaves like, and how to implement that. The second thing is, transparency. We never mind the social media lives that we live and the impact that social media does have. I think one of the key attributes to really understanding your environment and influencing that environment is really having that transparency with them and saying, this is who we are, this is what we do, and this is what we're about. And these are the changes that we're making. What other attributes do you see, that are sort of really starting to show their head based on the fact that companies are, suddenly having to ask questions they've never really had to ask and connect with, each other in a way we've never really considered before. Are there any themes that really come across in that way?
I think it's really interesting what you mentioned, and it made me think about something that I came across in the past year, that is leading with example. That is something we have maybe discussed for years, but during COVID and for all that happened during 2020, it was more and more clear what this means. So if everyone has to work remotely, you also as a manager has to work remotely. You don't have to go to the office, because otherwise the employees, they feel that they cannot work from home because the manager is on the office. And so transparency also, if you need to go to the office, explain that you need to go to the office for some reason, but they can stay at home, and it's not that you will judge them less because they stay at home. So COVID actually made us all stay at home and working from home. And so then leading with example, be transparent, but also be present to and organize maybe this like coffee break, online coffee break, because there cannot be that cannot happen in the office because everyone was working remotely, was also something. And the same, I think that leaders, and this is not easy, especially in some cultures, but in some countries and cultures, it also being transparent also meant to show your vulnerability. So also you as a manager, the uncertainty is something where every one of us is living. So sometimes it's fine that you don't have all the answers, because we are going through a global pandemic and maybe you don't have all the answers. And it's in your way of being transparent is also show your vulnerability, and your employees will appreciate you also for that, because you're not like keeping secrets, because actually they're not secrets to be kept.
Yeah. I see that as such a valid point, because I think, especially when it comes to vulnerability, there's so many, there are so many coaches in the world. One reference that always comes to mind is Brené Brown, that speaks around vulnerability in the corporate space. But I think that also lends itself to a corporate environment, really telling people that, no, I'm human like you are. I struggle with the same struggles you're struggling with. I ask the same questions, and I think that human connectivity, when you approach it that way, I think lends itself so wonderfully to how to do this more effectively. Because as I do all these conversations, and I do them regularly, very often, corporates have cultural consciousness and or cultural diversity and inclusivity as a crutch word, or a tick box exercise. And the real crux of the matter is, how do you actually do it? What are you actually doing to incorporate that inclusivity and really action what you're talking about? Can you give us some really practical tips and techniques where we can start really applying ourselves with this, and consider this as a strategy, and the importance of this? What would that be?
So I would say something that is maybe, it feels theoretical and abstract, and then something that is more concrete. But I would say starting with why you want to be inclusive more than diverse, because diverse is about the numbers. So yeah, you can like have more people of different minorities, and that's fine. But then if you have the numbers, and how to make all these people feel that they belong. So, and why you want that they belong, because if your why is clear, then you have your aim and your objective. And if it is like just to tick the box because you have to show, so probably you will fail, because you will put together that are like best practices somewhere, but actually you are not considering the needs. Involve your team. It is a needs, but it's also for the solutions, because again, there's no one thing that can fit all, and something that has worked in a department cannot work maybe in another department. So involve also them, also in thinking about the solutions. You can create also a working group that again can be inclusive, and it can be like representatives of even the different minorities, or also the different departments. Again, also this, I don't say that there is one rule, because maybe you don't want to create minorities, you want to create an inclusive workplace and just consider the different departments. And then you can have, for me to understand the needs, it's really to have this conversation, and you can have focus groups, you can have like survey, you can have both, you can have an open door policy, so people that can come. But this phase, it is extremely important. And for managers also to be aware of your conscious and unconscious biases, that it is again part of the vulnerability, because you don't want to have biases, but actually you have. And the more you are aware, the more that is, and you write them down, and you say, oh, I used that word, I had like a bad manner because of that conscious bias. It's really helped. So also like take notes and write down all your thinking and your acting is something that can be really helpful.
Yeah, it's amazing. Vivian, I think it's such an important topic that we discuss, and I think you should definitely come back and we should talk more about this. For 2021, what do you think the advice would be, or the core message that you have for businesses out there? It's just a off the cuff kind of question. I know it's putting you on the spot, but like I'm always keen to hear, what are other people in leadership doing in the world right now, and what approaches are they taking? What advice do you have for businesses out there today?
I would say start from your people, also because what is happening nowadays, and it has happened in the last month of 2020, and it will happen, a lot of people will change their migratory project. So you can have employees that maybe because they couldn't go home for a month, now they will ask you 3 months to go to the Philippines, Malaysia, the US, because they want and they need to stay with your family. So the more you can be flexible, if you want to keep them as your employees, and be flexible and support them in this time that was challenging, especially for people living abroad, but for all of us, and understand the importance of the work-life balance that can mean also that. So having people not in your same country or in your same office, but still working with you because they need also to be with their family, it's for sure something, especially for like global company or company that have expat or people coming from different countries working in the same space and company, but also, and this is about everyone, I think work-life balance, it will be a hot topic in 2021, because we have seen that we can work remotely and there are a lot of potential in working remotely. But working remotely is also about trust. So trust and task. So the more we will do that, I think, again, we'll...
I'm so glad that you mentioned work-life balance. I think, and it's strange, you know, I've had a number of conversations with European leaders like yourself, and it is a criteria. It's an absolute essential in certain European countries where, you know, they get it right. You know, work-life balance is unbelievably important. And with that said, you find that corporates and businesses are far more effective when they use that as a consideration, and especially now because remote working is such a big thing. You know, when people know that they have a balance and that boundary is respected, and you know, I'm working now and I have a personal life, and where that boundary is respected and upheld, I think is so important, because of COVID, you know, we're at home, we're always available, and we're always online. And corporates have essentially taken advantage of that, you know. So, yeah, I think that's such wonderful advice. Viviana, so if we want to get hold of you, where do we go? What's going to be the easiest way to do that?
Okay, so it's a big pleasure. So my website is www.gmdmalta.com. And you can find me also on LinkedIn and all the social media. So feel free to connect with me, Viviana Premazzi, and also Global Mindset Development. You will find it on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. So please get in touch.
Absolutely, guys. So Global Mindset Development will be, all that information will be shared on the YouTube link. So check it out. I'll put all the YouTube links below and connections below. Viviana, thank you so much. Thank you for chatting, and thank you for making some time for us. We should definitely come back and have some more conversation around it.
With pleasure. Thank you so much again.
That's it. Bye-bye.